I work on a group of women in Togo called the Nana Bands. These women are textile merchants who became multimillionaires in the 20th century. And my work looks at how the women use the economic resources they gained from the selling textiles in order to shape various political movements throughout West African history. The first being Togo's decolonization project, as well as Togo's nation building process. And I think one of the things that makes the Nana Bands such a unique group of women to study is that it's one of the most spectacularized examples of what African women do with power when they're in these kinds of positions of economic predominance.
My research is about the contributions of African women to nation building. And nation building, broadly defined, has to do with the building of common identity for African nations, to homogenize them. And I'm trying to look at the role of women in this nation building. And women have been so active on all fronts, in political, in economic, social, education, even in diplomatic issues. So they have contributed to nation building on all of these fronts.
In my research, I talk about African women diplomats, especially West African women diplomats, and their contributions to the United Nations in the realms of gender and racial equality. African women have really contributed to resolutions, policies, important documents that still protect the rights of women. In particular, I love talking about Anais Angelo from Ghana. She's such an inspiration in her advocacy for women's rights. She was very pivotal in the drafting of the CEDAW and DIDO documents, which protects the rights of you and I to this very day. It's important to really bring up these historiographies and talk about African women at the UN.
I study histories of international development in Kenya, and in lots of that research I focus on women's roles in international development. They have been sidelined in lots of ways and marginalized as far as gaining access to development funding or being able to participate actively in development, but again, without understanding the roles that they made for themselves or the spaces that they carved out for themselves, we can't understand the functioning of development.
For my PhD research, I'm looking at the female traditional leaders in Zimbabwe, their legitimacy, how they've been able to legitimize their authority. It's a male-dominated institution. So I'm looking at it how have they been able to break through the ceiling? They are women who have challenged the customs and traditions of traditional succession, and how have they been able to accept it by the community and the nation at large.
I'm working in two places of extreme violence, in Mexico and Congo, and in both places the violence has a relation with economic situations. For example, in Mexico, narco traffic, and in the case of Congo, with mining. People have organized, mostly women. In the case of Mexico, it's the mothers are organizing to look for their missing children. And in the case of Congo, it's the women who are trying to face a massive rape that is related to mining. So I'm working on showing how together they are creating a paradigm of new forms of justice that I call anarchic justice.
I come at this as a political scientist with an interest in civil-military relations, primarily coups, and always been struck by how questions around gender and the role of women in these processes or events never figures at all. And I don't think you can understand political science, civil-military relations, the study of coups, without taking gender and women's studies seriously, because then it's not accurate and it's not rigorous.
So the project I presented this morning is about the history of women in the executive arm of government in my country, specifically the cabinet. And it's important because the cabinet is a place where policies are implemented. That's where party manifestos can actually get legs and change the course of a country. So if we think about policy implementation, if you think about budgeting, then it's really important that we have diverse cabinets so that people have a say in what is actually a really critical matter of existence.